Hello, and thank you for watching Scumbag Customs. In this video I'm going to talk about removing mold lines. Removing mold lines is a very boring but essential part of the hobby. And it's necessary on both plastic and metal models. For this video I'm going to use some basic tools like an X-Acto knife, some basic files, and the Citadel mold line removal tool. As I have just purchased the mold line remover tool, let's have a look inside before we start. Hey, it's a very good looking tool, and this packaging makes it look quite expensive, but the way they put it together I think is a bit sloppy and takes a bit away from the tool, besides that you don't really need it. Now I think it is very well priced, this product, so let's see if it's worth using it. First up, let's have a look at the older metal models. Games Workshop is moving more and more to plastic models, but chances are you will either have quite a lot of these already or will still purchase some in the future, either from Games Workshop or different manufacturers. Now what I used to do for these was either just kinda use a rounded off file to kinda go with the shape of the figure, or simply use an X-Acto knife and kinda scrape with the mold line to kinda scrape it off. Now this is quite effective, but you'll be running out of blades very quickly because the metal makes them dull quite quickly. The advantage of using an X-Acto knife, however, is that it's very easy to get in those tiny spots. Now if we have a look at the mold line remover, it's a very strong tool. I don't think you will be making it dull very soon, but the problem with it seems to be getting into smaller areas. Which makes it difficult to use just this tool for the entire model. So if you're looking to replace your X-Acto knife, that's not going to happen. You kinda need to keep using either an X-Acto knife or just your basic files. Now let's have a look at a plastic model. This is one of the Primaris Marines that you kinda get for free by an initial purchase at Games Workshop or a local hobby shop. I'm not entirely sure. But they come for free if you buy some Games Workshop products. To save you the agony of having to look at me cutting every single bit of the sprue, I kinda fast forwarded that bit. So let's have a look. Once you've cut all the parts of the sprue, it's just a good thing to start looking with where the mold lines are. Where did the molds come together? And where do you have to remove the mold lines? So the first part that I start with is using an X-Acto knife and kind of just cut away the bigger parts. Be careful not to cut yourself. and make sure you don't cut away any of the detail that you need in the model. So don't try to cut away too much if it's not necessary. You can already start a little bit by scratching off some of the mold line. Just kind of scrape it following the line. Now the good thing about the mold line removal tool is that it has a curve in here. So supposedly it is better to use with rounded surfaces, because if you keep scraping it with a flat surface, you kind of get rid of the rounding in there. Still, I don't think it works that well for scratching off larger parts of plastic. Let's have a look at this little bit here. Okay, so it does go off. Now it's very easy to spot where you've scratched, but don't worry about that. Once you put some paint on, it will be a lot harder to see the difference. Plastic is a lot easier to work with than metal, because the material is just that much softer, and I rarely end up using a file for plastic. I just really, most of the time, use my X-Acto knife because I'm most familiar with it, and as I just got the mold line removal tool, I still need to get used a little bit to working with it. So again, removing mold lines is an extremely boring and annoying job. I think most people do not enjoy doing this, but it is very essential. So often I see pictures of miniatures appearing online with a pretty good paint job that just would have looked so much better if they've gotten rid of the mold lines. It's quite easy to have your miniature stand out pretty good if you just use some basic painting techniques. You don't need to be a golden demon artist to make your miniatures look good. But if you have a very high quality of painting and you didn't remove your mold lines, it's just such a waste of your paint job. So I recommend everyone to just take your time and get rid of all these pesky little mold lines. So once more, I'm moving over to a metal miniature to show you the basic techniques one final time. So when using an X-Acto knife or your mold line remover tool, follow the mold line. Just go over it, follow the direction of the line to scrape it off. So same with an X-Acto knife. Just follow the direction of your line. Just watch out, don't cut yourself, okay? Be careful. Don't sue me. And finally, if you use a file, go back and forth over the mold line. So you're not following it, you're just going to cross it. Very boring, very necessary. So those were the basic techniques for removing your mold lines. Now let's have a look at the tools themselves. Let's start with my favorite tool, the X-Acto knife. Chances are you have one at home already, so you don't need to make a separate purchase. You just need to get extra blades. Especially when using them on metal models, they tend to get dull a bit quicker. It's alright if you only keep using them for mold line removal, but if you want to cut some other stuff, you'd see you'll be going through your blades a lot quicker than usual. Next are the files. These are usually very cheap to get as well, depending on what manufacturer. And they're a very good addition to just kinda help out with some spots you don't want to scratch off. It makes it easier to go if your object is rounded, so you don't get a flat surface from scratching the mold line. I don't like to use these to go around the whole model, but in some smaller details they are very helpful. And finally, the Citadel mold line removal tool. I've only just started using it, so I'm not too certain of it yet. I think it's good to prevent you from having to use many countless blades on your X-Acto knife, but to be honest, I'm not sure if it's really necessary. I think it's more of a luxury tool that just looks very nice and neat, but by no means can you clean off the complete mold lines of very detailed models without using an X-Acto knife or some files as well. So if you do have the money to spend, it's a very nice tool, but you don't really need it. And that's it for this video. If you have a question, please leave a comment. If you'd like to support my channel, please subscribe and feel free to share my videos on your social media.